Good morning and welcome back to the Closer's Inner Circle podcast with your host Denise Griffitts and Bengay the Third. And our topic today is sharpening your sales. And our sales infiltration journey rolls on in week 14. So today in this episode, Ben is going to draw fresh lessons from the Closer series using the text and the content as a springboard rather than a rigid checklist. And to do that, he is exploring the psychology that turns conversations into commitments. So we're going to try to talk about, because we never quite talk about what we say we're going to, but our plan today is to chat about how to spot the subtle clues that signal a prospect's true mindset, flexible language patterns that you can adapt to any selling style or situation. And this is the best part, and this is why we never stay on script. Stories from Ben's decades in the field that show theory in action and how to pivot when the script falls apart. So, are you a first time listener? You'll still walk away with actionable tactics. A longtime follower, consider this a tune up for the instincts that you've been honing, here's air quotes, all semester. So, welcome to the show. We are glad to hear. And a pro tip, keep your closers books nearby to underline aha moments and jot down questions. You never know what page Ben is going to take off on next. So hit play, stay curious, and let's keep sharpening those sales instincts together. And be sure to send us any questions you have. We do our best to answer as many as we can each week. Ben, good morning. It's Wednesday. I'm always glad to hear your voice on Wednesday.
Well, thank you. And the feeling is mutual. Been looking forward to it as always. Woke up this morning and said to myself, self? Self say, huh? I said, today is the day we meet with Denise
And
and
take out the trash.
and take out the trash.
Right. I always am thinking, okay, does he take out the trash first and then talk to me? I'm never sure where I am on that list.
You're ahead of it this time. If I
All
were
right.
if I were up and really doing things, the trash might have beat you, but as it is, I haven't gotten to it yet. But they don't pick it up until tomorrow morning. It's put out today, so there's very
Oh,
little pressure on me.
okay. Ours is Tuesday and Friday. I do the same thing, unless it's windy, because otherwise I'm going to be picking up down the road. So, I have to watch the weather before I haul mine out there.
We've had a few of those. I keep an eye on the weather on Wednesdays because if a storm comes down out of the mountains, we're in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains. If a storm comes down, I get to share my trash with all of my neighbors and vice versa. So on those
I have
days,
been
I
known
wait,
to, yeah, I've
wait.
done the same. I've been out literally at, because when it rains here, it rains and it may flood. My backyard, I call it Lake Griffiths, but I've been known to be out there with my pant legs rolled up, barefoot, hauling trash cans that are floating. And these things are heavy. They're big, they're heavy, and they will float. It doesn't matter how full they are. And I have to go get them. And then I have to go get the neighbors' cans because they're not home. I don't like it, but it has to be done.
We had let's not spend a lot of time on trash cans, but we had I'm known in the neighborhood. I dissolved the homeowners association. Uh, they were all together in a group that I happened to join, and I said, "Has anyone thought about dissolving this? Everybody hates the group in general, and some of you specifically." We had a quorum by accident, and I said, "Who's in favor? I'll make the motion. I'm in favor of dissolving the homeowners association. Do I have a second? Second." And I said, "Good. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? The three or four jerks that were excited about it with their clipboards voted no, and we dissolved it." And then somebody said, "Well, should we have something where we all stay in touch?" I said, "Let's have the Deer Crossing, our thing is called Deer Crossing Neighbors Association, of which I will be the executive director." And they said, "Done." So I'm now the executive director of an organization that exists mainly in my mind. And the only thing I enforce is directly across the street and to either side of me. Fridays, if your trash can is still out, I go get it and put it up near your garage door. And the reason is a house directly across the street from us used to be occupied by some lovely people that we knew. They went away, left the newspapers in the driveway back when
Oh,
everybody got newspapers every morning, and left 2 or 3 days newspapers in the driveway and their trash cans. And I didn't catch it or care. Turns out some Russian gypsies, I don't know how the police discovered that, but Russian gypsies climbed over their back fence, which goes right up to historic Highway 49, went in their house and stole 40,000, and today that'd be $400,000 in gold,
oh my God.
gold coins, bars, and so on, his entire little collection. And I said to the police, how in the world? I didn't know he had gold bars and we're friends. How? And he said they didn't know they had gold bars either. What they did know was nobody was home. And
Oh,
he said, that's, you want to get robbed, just leave your trash
oh
cans out
yeah.
for 2 or 3
Yeah.
days.
We do the same thing here. If anybody's got their can, my next door neighbor, she's not well. And I don't think she's really strong enough or tough enough to go wrestle that thing back up the drive. And I pick up mine and I pick up hers and we're done.
Yeah. That's only a nice thing to do. You probably save yourself from being burglarized because my theory is once they're in the neighborhood robbing, they don't just stick to the house they started with.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
you look
Yeah.
around and see what else is available.
Well,
Well,
good for
fortunately,
you.
we have an office wing in our house attached to the house where I work from. So between daily living and a functioning office with people in it, we're here. So if you want to rob us, come on. You know, we're ready for you. But the rest of the world doesn't operate that way. And so I kid about taking in and out the trash, but I don't want to lose $40,000 worth of anything.
Right. I mean, all those stacks and stacks of yellow pads you've got, those are worth something,
Yeah, that
right?
I wouldn't mind. I feel like gift wrapping the old ones, the used ones,
Well,
gift
you need to
wrapping them.
send those to me. I'll take care of them.
They're used up, or they wouldn't
No,
be.
I know that's why I want them. Think of the wisdom I could gain from those.
Well, uh, I may let me give it some thought, and I'll put a price on them.
Well, just don't send them where I have to pay for the shipping. That's all I ask you,
Free
because I
shipping.
got a ton of them. Okay, so
Well,
what are
let's
we
get
talking
on
about?
to
Yeah, what are we talking about today?
sales infiltration, of course, starts on page 257 in the closers part two. We've been circling that for quite some time because it's ethereal, I guess. It's not like do this, do this, do this. It's an attitude, the way you conduct yourself, the way you talk to people, everything, or the way you carry yourself, everything about the sales experience is covered in sales infiltration, except for product knowledge, because we all have different products. So make sure you know everything about your product or service. But the rest of selling is selling. Uh, I laugh about it, but I frequently, when I'm working with clients, put on the lectern in front of me or propped up in front of me if I'm in a boardroom table or something. I put either the company's name or the industry we're in, because what I say to Kirby Vacuum Cleaner is very similar to what I say to one of the largest investment banking firms in the country. And so I don't want to say, and so when you're displaying your vacuum to a table full of millionaires who sell investments,
Right.
uh,
They're
but
not going to take you seriously.
yeah, but what I say after we name the product or service, which I try and do frequently up front, so they understand at least I know where I am. 90% of the rest of it is identical. It's the same stuff. It's getting inside, becoming part of the family, dissolving team A and B, team A being the salesperson who's out to get your money, team B being the customer who's out to protect his wallet from this vulture that's gotten in, and create team C, where the buyer and the seller own that team 50-50, and they together figure out what the problem is, if there is one, and how to solve it together. So it's just a different attitude. People say, "Well, can you explain that to me?" And I always think of Jimmy Rucker, my running buddy and first business partner, the greatest salesman I ever personally worked with. Jimmy would say, "Well, just watch what I do and do that," which made him the greatest salesperson and the worst sales trainer because he didn't know what he did. He was Jimmy Rucker, and everybody loved and trusted Jimmy Rucker, which comes down to the phrase we coined years ago. People like to do business with people they know, like, trust, and with whom they feel safe. So if you're trying to learn how to be a great salesperson, that's really what you're looking for. How do you become and tastefully project the fact that you are a person they should know, like, trust, and feel safe with? And if you
I
can
feel
con
comfortable with. If there's
yeah,
something about you or your presentation that has people twitching a bit, you're doing it wrong.
right, absolutely. I told you about Jimmy. Uh, People who hadn't known him 10 minutes were calling him not Jim Rucker or James H. Rucker Jr. They were calling him Jimmy. And rather quickly thereafter, if there were kids around, he was Uncle Jimmy. Uh, he knew the dogs' names, even if he hadn't met the dogs, because he'd find out about them. And he cared. He listened. Jimmy's one of two people that I've ever known. The other one being Johnny Hyde, the great disc jockey, who good friend of mine, and was the first person to play Beatles music in the United States, and the producer. He had the gold records for Wipeout and Monster Mash, which
Now,
makes me
that one
old.
I know. Every
Yeah,
Halloween I go look for it.
that's Johnny Hyde in a little room he rented somewhere. He used to call it a garage. I don't know if it was or not, but a garage or a storage unit he put together for this group. Same thing with his other big hit. So, but both of them were incredible listeners. You could talk to Johnny about something, same thing with Jimmy. Talk to him for something about something, and somewhere in the story, perhaps without even mentioning it, mention something that you like or want or been thinking about getting or what have you. And at the next birthday, anniversary, Christmas, whatever, it would show up. And you might not have mentioned it in 7, 8, 9, 10 months, but they listened. I guess they made written notes.
Right.
And so their things were thoughtful. Therefore, you knew them, you liked them, you trusted them, you felt safe with them, felt comfortable with them. And that's sort of the basis of sales infiltration. I wrote sales infiltration with Jimmy Rucker in mind, trying to write down what he did, even if he didn't know what he did. And I was thinking, I was talking to a friend from Atlanta uh, within the last day or two, and he said, "Ben, tell me the new Coke story again. Remember when Coca-Cola came out with New Coke, and it was an instant bomb
See,
to
I
the
don't remember it, but I don't drink Coke. I've I don't I don't drink sugar water. I just don't. But
well,
I
that's what it
probably
is.
should know about it, but I don't. So keep talking.
Well, being from Atlanta, Coca-Cola is a food group unto itself. But they decided one day, and they had focus groups and blind taste testing, did all sorts of things to come out with new Coke. And they just announced it one morning, and suddenly, when you went to the store, the Coke you grew up with, Coca-Cola, was gone. They'd always made other flavors, Fanta and various diet drinks and cherry this and whatever. But the core product, Coca-Cola, was a national heritage. It was like the American flag.
Right.
And
Even I know that, and I don't drink it.
yeah, so they come out with new Coke. It's an instant bomb. It reminds me of Bud Light, which millions of people quit drinking when they went woke a few months ago or a year ago, whatever it's been.
And they're not
But
coming back, by the way.
no, no. I drink a Bud Light or a light beer, 1 can a day usually, and then I have wine. But having had Bud Light without even thinking about it, it was just how I got introduced to light beer. Having had a Bud Light every day for a long time, I went to no Bud Light. I drink Coors Light now, and they say, Ben, we've got a special on Bud Light, and I think, I bet you do.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah, I would too if I owned a storeroom full of it.
Yeah.
But they broke a trust. They went south on us or veered hard left, and a bunch of us just said, "Fine." I don't go out and hold signs and march around, but uh, I'm done. And if early on somebody from the Budweiser or the Bush families had come forward and said, "We screwed up, we're sorry, please come back for the next month, we'll give you a discount or whatever," I probably could have gotten over it. But they dug their heels in, and there's lots of light beers to choose from, and they all taste like skunk urine anyway. I'm not
See,
a
I don't
aficionado of
drink beer
beer.
either. And the
Yeah,
only time, because it tastes like dirty dishwater to me.
yeah,
And the
it's
only time I will drink part of a beer is during a crawfish boil.
uh,
You'll have to pour me like a little thimble of it because I'm just doing it because it's a crawfish boil. But somebody else needs to take the rest of that beer and drink it because I'm not touching it.
yeah. I can't defend the drinking of beer, period.
No, it's
Although I've
nasty.
certainly had more than my share. It was just the inexpensive way to get a buzz on when we were
No.
teenagers. And that was Carling's Black Label. I don't know if they still make it or not, but Carling's Black Label. Well, let me finish this story on uh, Bud Light and New Coke. So they changed to New Coke, boom, overnight. Regular Coke is gone, but they
Was
have
it
behind,
gone, gone? It really was gone. They just
oh yeah,
replaced it?
yeah, it's back now called Classic Coke. But for a
Oh,
while, New Coke was Coke, take it or leave it.
I
And
guess
the
they left
customers,
it.
okay, the customer said, "Thank you, I'll
Yeah,
leave it."
yeah.
So, what went wrong? If the taste tests were there and the focus groups were there and everybody liked New Coke better, um, that's also true, by the way, of Pepsi. In blind taste tests, people prefer Pepsi to Coke, and they go, "Huh, that's interesting," and go buy Coke. There's something that they've ingrained in the all over the world. I don't think I've ever been
Right.
anywhere. I haven't seen a Coca-Cola sign in any country, anywhere in the world.
Kind of
You'd
like
find it.
McDonald's. They're ubiquitous. They're everywhere.
Yep.
And that stuff's not edible, by the way. Okay,
Uh,
keep going.
I've sworn off of that too for other reasons, but by and large, it's going downhill fast.
Yeah.
And here in Placerville, California, they led the parade. Or one store. If you want to set up a bowling alley, you could do it in that store and it wouldn't hurt anybody. So they're all trying to figure out what went wrong. They're calling the focus groups back. Did you lie to us? And so on. One night, I wasn't there. This was related to me, but one night at the downtown club, East Lake Country Club in Atlanta, where I grew up, it was called the Atlanta Athletic Club, and it's got a couple of restaurants in it and a wonderful bar and 6 or 7 stories of hotel rooms for members and members guests and so on. And it's right across the street from Macy's where I worked in those days. I could cross the street. All my friends were going to Crystal Burger at 11 cents a hamburger, and I'd go over to the athletic club because I could sign my father's name. Um, until he caught on to that game and put limits on it. Uh, that's where I had
Your
lunch.
dad had a lot of things to watch out for with you, didn't
He
he?
did. Yes, he
Okay.
did.
I just wanted to get that out of the way.
He said supervising me was a full-time job and he needed assistance. I was conceived on Pearl Harbor Day. He was in the Navy. He was home on leave. It happened. He and mother decided they needed one last encounter in case he didn't come back because he had to go back to base immediately. And so I know the day on which I was conceived, and Dad went to his grave, or to his, we talked about it earlier off mic.
Right.
He
Right. We
went he
did.
went to his golf green at East Lake. He was cremated and scattered on the famous six hole, the island hole. But he went to his sprinkled grave saying that two horrible things happened to America on December 7th, 1941. One, the Japanese hit Pearl Harbor, and two, I was conceived. I, I never knew if that was an insult or what, but I think it was.
No, it wasn't. He was just snarky. A
So
little bit
anyway, the
snarky.
chairman of the board of Coca-Cola, and when you're chairman of the board of Coke, you're automatically a member of the Atlanta Athletic Club and East Lake Country Club. At least that was the way it was when I was growing up. He's sitting at the bar in the athletic club, waiting for his wife to join him, and they're going to go out to dinner. He wasn't a well-known personality physically, so no one at the bar, bartender probably knew, but no one at the bar knew he was the chairman of the board at Coca-Cola. And so he's sitting there thinking to himself, I'm sure among other things, but he's thinking to himself, how do we screw up? What went wrong, etc. Well, he didn't know about know, like, trust, and with whom you feel comfortable. If he had,
Right.
they wouldn't have made that mistake. Because sitting next to him were two guys at the bar, fellow members of the club. They don't know who he is. They're just talking between themselves. And one of them said to the other one, I actually like New Coke better, but I'll never let those sons of bitches know it.
Hmm.
And the
Because they
chairman,
broke trust.
they, it would be like you and I getting together and redesigning the American flag
Oh
without
gosh.
telling anybody.
All right. Yeah,
And
that'd
then
fly.
yeah, and announce it the next morning, here's the new flag. There would be an uprising as there was with New Coke. The guy gets up from his bar stool, goes to a payphone. This is before cell phones, goes to a payphone in the lobby and calls whoever you call if you're the chairman of the board of Coke and want to get the word to the board rather quickly. He said, I found the problem. We violated their trust.
Right.
We broke a national uh, trust, belief, whatever. Uh, Gather the board for tomorrow morning and be thinking about what we're going to call Coke when we bring it back. And I don't know if they still have new Coke. They have many
I don't know.
flavors of Coke on the shelves,
Right.
but Coke, like we liked it, like they changed without asking anybody, is now called Classic Coke, and it has returned, and it's their number one seller like it was before. But I just, that phrase stuck with me so well. Truth is, I like New Coke better, but I will never let those sons of bitches know it. And that's something that we can do to our customers
Oh
without
yeah.
realizing it. We can
Yeah.
do something that violates the trust. And once trust is broken, once I know that you will lie, cheat, and steal, it's very hard, if not impossible, to get it back. I might forgive you for the act. I might forgive you for telling me you could absolutely have your product or service in my building on Monday and then I find out you knew it was going to be a month after that before it was. In the meantime, I've planned things around it. Maybe I've got
Right.
meetings, advertising things, and so on. Now, no matter what you tell me, I'm thinking, that may not be true. And people who feel like that don't buy. So a big part of sales infiltration, page 257 in the closers part two, is make them know, like, trust, and feel safe with you. And the great example of violating that trust is the new Coke story I just shared with you. Never
Right.
let your customers say, the truth is, I don't mind and so on, but I'll never let
But
that
right.
SOB know because I don't trust him anymore.
And here's the thing. I mean, I'll forgive. I'll forgive a lot but I don't ever forget. And let me tell you something, I can hold a grudge like nobody's business. You may not know about it, but I won't be doing business with you ever again.
Yeah, Johnny Hyde, who I talked about fondly, was a dear friend of mine, and we continued to go out and have dinner because he was a great storyteller and had been a big deal in the radio industry and so on. And he was the biological father of one of my stepchildren. He'd been married to my second wife, not Gigi, but my second wife before I was. So we were buddies. But he used to say to me occasionally, Ben, how come we don't do business together anymore? He used to work for me. He's one of my top salespeople. I said, Johnny, I love you. I love your stories. I wouldn't miss our time together. But you and I will never again go in 50-50 on a pack of gum. You've violated. I caught him lying, cheating, and stealing within my company while working for me.
Mm,
So he violated that. I loved him. I forgave
mm,
him for doing
right.
it. And, I even thought about what I have done if I was in the same position, trying to justify it and so on. But it didn't make any difference because I wouldn't go in 50-50 on a pack of gum with him after that day. So that's it might take you years. It usually doesn't if you're good. It might take you years to build the trust, but you can lose it in seconds.
Absolutely. And it can be something just as silly as saying something that's a bit off color that's not appropriate. And all of a sudden, you can almost hear in the other person's head, ding, ding, ding. What was that? What was
Yep.
that?
Yep.
And that sticks with people. Once you lose trust, it's kind of over forever. At least in a large part, it's over
Mhm.
forever. So be careful how you approach people, how you talk with people. More importantly, the promises that you make. If you're
Yeah,
going to say, I will do this, you darn well better do it.
yeah, if you can't do it. I early in my career and before any personal development other than being raised properly, before that kicked in, I had a tendency to say whatever was necessary to get through the moment, to get the sale, to get out of this awkward situation or
Yeah, you've shared
whatever.
some of those stories, and I still laugh about the one where you had to pack up and run because you were afraid they were going to call your dad or something. I can't remember now,
That
but
literally happened
yeah, I know.
in a grocery store chain in I think it was North Carolina. Uh, just so we don't leave our listeners hanging, my father was a food broker during most of my life. He did other things, but he was a food broker. And at night, he used to complain about Sybil, that was her name,
Yeah,
who was the gatekeeper
I
for,
remember her.
yeah, for Alderman grocery stores. They were probably still are on the New York Stock Exchange, but she was George Alterman. He was sort of the greater among five Alterman brothers. She was the gatekeeper and a real killer, apparently. Anyway, he didn't care for her, but figured out a way to work around her and so on. So one day I'm calling on a grocery chain in North Carolina, and I'm still in the stage of exaggeration. And I said to the guy, I was trying to sell him hairspray. We had a hairspray that you could double the price, 44 cents, and still sell it for 88 cents, which at the time was remarkably low. And I thought would be a huge hit, although it was early in the product's development. So I said to this buyer, I can't think of the name of the chain, but anyway, I said to the buyer, yeah, he said, is anyone else doing this yet? Have they tried it? And he said, oh yeah, Altman Brothers in Atlanta. They bought a carload. I'm not sure I'd ever sold a carload, and I don't know if I was picturing an automobile or a boxcar, but I said,
Boxcar.
yeah, it was a term
That's
that
where my head went as a boxcar.
yeah, it probably was, but that was a term I'd heard my father toss around, whether I'd ever sold a box load or a carload of anything. And he said, really? I said, yeah, flying off the shelves. And he stands up, and as he stands up, he picks up his phone and says to his lady, we'll call her Nancy, Nancy, get Sybil on the phone. And the hair on the back of my Sybil's in Atlanta. We're in North Carolina. These are rival chains, you'd think. And he gets Sybil on the phone, and he said, I'll be back in a minute, and walked out. I picked up all my samples, picked up my business card, and fled the building.
Oh, he was giving you an opportunity to go out the window. That wasn't
Yeah,
an
I really
accident.
think so. I've
Yeah,
caught the kid in a lie. Let's
yeah.
see what he does now.
He ran.
Yeah, I never heard anything from my father, so somehow the story didn't get from Sybil to George Alterman to my dad, and they had lunch every Wednesday for years.
Right.
So I figured Wednesday night is not going to be a good night for me, but it came and went and came and went, and it never came back to bite me. But I've
I
had
bet he knew.
nightmares.
I'm willing to bet he knew he was just going to keep you on tenterhooks.
Well, it worked. as
Yeah,
I as I
you're
went
still
through
talking about it.
as I went through his receptionist lobby, the lady who'd been so gracious to get me in and so on said, "Are you done?" I said, "Yes." Yeah, and you don't know me.
I've never been here. I swear, I think your dad knew. Given the stories you told me about him, I'd put money on it.
uh,
But you're right. And once well, let me back up a little bit to that story. When did you, I guess, grow up and become a genuine salesperson and decide that, just blowing your way through these sales presentations and saying whatever you thought people needed to hear? When did you say, Ben, that's not working for me?
a couple of awkward times after Jimmy Rucker and I joined Holiday Magic. One of them that popped to my mind while you were asking the question. When we joined the business, we didn't make a penny for 6 months. Not, we didn't sell a tube of lipstick, not even to my mother, his mother, my sister, whatever. Nothing happened because I wouldn't learn the scripts that I was told to memorize the day I joined. Bill Dempsey gave me a record, which is still right here on my desk, Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret. And he said, "You're young. Go home and listen to this. She's going to have to grow up." I was 22 years old, I guess. And he gave me an old beat up copy of Think and Grow Rich. Oddly enough, both Earl Nightingale and Dr. Napoleon Hill wound up working for me, partially based on Dempsey giving me that record and that book. So somewhere along in that line, but anyway, we weren't making any money, and people joined because their sponsor was making money. So although we were making nothing and had very few prospects anyway, because he also gave me scripts to learn, which I said, we don't need that. I'm glib. I was voted wittiest in my senior class in high school. Who needs to learn how to sell if you're the wittiest
Right.
guy? So I didn't learn them. But everybody else saying I'm making 10,000 a month and I'm doing this. So Jimmy and I started saying we were making 10,000 a month. Well, after a while, we started making 10,000 a month. This is in early 1960 dollars, so it's like 100,000 now. But I'll stick with the original figures. We started saying we were making 10,000. After a while, people say, are you still just making 10,000?
Ooh, ow.
Yes. So we bumped it to 20, and then we bumped it to 30, and then we bumped it to 40. And I told Rucker, I said, this is getting ridiculous. The funny thing about that was that month we had made $40,000 part-time in the business. But I said, Rucker, there's no end to this. We went from zero, the truth, to 10,000 a lie, to 20,000 exaggeration. 30, we were just about making it. 40, we were actually making it. Next month, they're going to want us to make 50, 60,000. Let's stop. And that was the last time, that's been many years ago, the last time I recruited anybody into any business based on what I was making. That's not important, I would say. What's important, and sometimes I tell them that story. What's important is how much you will make if I work with you And if we have the product I say we have, one of my great secrets in selling, we've talked about this before, I only sell now, uh, and pretty much did then just out of common sense, but I only sell now quality products and services that are competitively priced. And I spend my day talking to qualified people qualified to buy them. And that and I've every product and service that I've sold, am selling now, I have a script for how to best describe it. I rarely use the entire script, but I use script chunks. If you ask me about the closers part two, I just leave out the part about closers part one and the rest of the series and just talk about part two, which in that script starts off. Part two picks up where part one leaves off and
Right.
shows you what sophisticated people really do with that information. That
And see,
information being,
you taught me scripting, and I think Dr. Napoleon Hill taught you scripting, but I've been podcasting for 17 years, which I'm still shocked by. I didn't always have a script, and look, you know me very well. I don't ever know what's going to come out of my mouth. I really don't until I
mhm,
heard it, and then you might hear me say, "Oh, geez," you know, because like, what the heck was that? Once you taught me to script, I script everything. This is scripting that we're talking. You know, I have a script that
sure,
I work with. Now, do I read it? No, but it's there to keep me honest. It's there to keep me on track. With your partner in Success Radio, same thing. I have my podcast. If you actually listen to it, you'll know that there's an introduction. There's, a please ask my guest to say, who you are, what you do. I've got chunks and it's the same every single week, but without that script, as long as I've been doing this, I'm lost.
yep.
I have
And,
to have it in front of me.
yeah, whether you have to look at it anymore or not is not important.
No, I really don't. But
Yeah,
it's if I have to glance at, oh yeah, yeah, let me go back to this part. But it keeps me on track and it's comfortable for the guest because they have listened, they know what's going to happen, and I'm not throwing them off kilter.
absolutely crucial. For years in Holiday Magic, we had a script it was 37 minutes long that I had written.
Uh,
There was a script when I got there, but I improved it. Uh, 37 minutes long, and you were required to know it word for word. And then we showed a movie that ran the rest of the hour. And then the lights came on, and the movie had just said, turn to the person who brought you here and ask how you can get started in Holiday Magic. Scripted beginning to end, canned, worked
mhm.
highly effectively. And probably could do it backwards with a little hypnotist or something, hypnosis. Um, but for years, I had a 3x5 card with the 10 major points of that 37-minute presentation in my suit pocket, side pocket. As I went to the lectern, I would get it out and lay it down. I didn't have to glance at it the last whatever years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I never had to glance at it, but it was my security blanket in case I went up on my lines, as they say in show business. In case I went up on my lines, I just needed to know it was there. And what that was, I didn't know it, the terminology at the time. Those were my early script chunks.
Right.
Number one probably said, welcome to the meeting, welcome. And two was tell them what you're going to do or whatever. And so on. But it was my crutch and very helpful to me. I took a few years off from public speaking on a regular basis. I was still teaching classes, but in front of big crowds. And when I returned to it, somebody said afterwards, I've never seen anybody do that before. I said, do what? I had in my hand a big yellow card, not a 3x5, the next size up, when it was noticeable, no way to hide it. And I had it in my hand. They said, I think you only glance at it once. What is it? I said, it's my cheat sheet
Right.
in
Right.
case I had gone up on my
It keeps you
line.
honest. It keeps
Yeah.
you on track.
Yeah. I've told you the nightmare story. We were doing a big meeting in Holiday Magic, introducing 30 or 40 new products, and our training staff of over 100 people between the men and the women. The women train cosmetics primarily, and the men train business primarily. And we were introducing a new business film to replace the film that they were playing the night I had joined. And it was starring Jeff Hunter, who was he wasn't then an old, but now an old movie star who had played Christ in King of Kings.
Hmm.
And we had two lecterns. One I had set up where I'll stand here when I'm doing the products, and the other one over there where I'm introducing people. And behind me were four huge screens, one square, one rectangular, one triangular, and one circular. And as I would talk about each new product, they would pop up on those big screens behind me as I introduced each new, not new, but each trainer in the company as they came out and took their place on stage. Their thing would light up and so on. So I transferred back and forth between the lecterns depending on what I was introducing. Uh, I got to a lectern and the lights went out in the Long Beach arena. Me and 15,000 or so people were sitting in total darkness. I don't mean dim, total darkness. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? And when the lights came back on, I was not at the lectern with the people notes on it. And it was time to introduce Jeff Hunter, famous movie star. His name was 40 feet away on another lectern, and I couldn't think of it. Truth is, I'd never heard of Jeff Hunter before that. I did once reviewing the movie when it was in production, but I'm now 40 feet away from his name. So rather than wander over and talk about something else for a few minutes, I started guessing. And I
Uh-oh.
called him every name you could possibly call him that started with a J and an H.
I bet you got cut off his Christmas card list.
Uh, Jeffrey Humphreys, uh, and my wife at the time was sitting with him, and she says, I get one opportunity to meet a movie star and you screw it up. So if I had my cheat sheet, part B of having cheat sheets is being near them. You know, have
This
them
is
in your
true,
have them
right?
in your hand, or you might have an embarrassing moment.
Or write them on the back of your hand. Do something,
Yeah.
just do whatever it takes. How did he take it? I mean, was he mad at you
He
or?
was the truth is, I never met him before, and I don't remember talking to him afterwards. We got 20,000 people in the room. You got to spend time with them, and the show went on.
Right.
So I wish I had a good story about how he took it. All I know is coming up, he looked me dead in the eyes and laughed. He was taking it well at that time.
Well, it sounds like he was a nice guy.
Yeah, I think handsome,
I bet.
movie star handsome. uh, but not a memorable name, apparently, to me
No, I'd
at
never
the
heard of
time.
him before you told me this story before, and I had to go look him up. But yeah. So and we've been talking about losing trust, but you didn't lose trust that time. I mean, you kept on going.
Yeah, and one of the secrets I've learned about that is in public speaking and in selling, when you mess up, which will happen no matter how pure your heart is,
Own
when you
it.
mess up, admit it.
Own it. Right.
Just J. Doug Edwards, J. Douglas Edwards, one of the people who trained my generation, and with whom, although he was in death, I wrote Sales Closing Power from what he learned from me, and that's on our site where people can get it. Uh, a wonderful book because I had good material, his material to work with. The the trust factor uh, kicks in, and I had wonderful people to work with who were very helpful to me. And he taught me, among other things, when you have a built-in objection, bring it up first and brag about it. If you're selling Rolls Royces, the price is the objection. right after, "Hi, my name is Ben Gay," deal with the price. Because if they came in thinking the role was going to be $19,000 and the starter kit is $350,000 or whatever it is now,
Right,
you need to bring that up first. So if I make a mistake on stage now, and I frequently do, I laugh about it. My opening line after I'm introduced, and because I wrote the introduction and I don't want them being creative, read it word for word or we will cut your microphone. Don't need
Ooh,
your creativity.
right.
It always gets a standing ovation because I'm a wonderful person and it's a wonderful script. But
And
you
you're modest too.
and I'm modest. But
Right.
when I walk on stage and that's been done and they're sitting back down, I say, let's get this Ben Gay thing out of the way. You got, if I'm addressing 5,000 people, there are 5,000 people thinking, does he know there's a product in the drugstore with his name on it?
Isn't it a pink product? I'm not sure. Isn't it like a pink ointment or something?
The tube, I have one here on my desk that I hold up in front of the camera when we're talking about this with other people, is pink, almost red, but pinkish.
Okay. The reason
Well,
I'm asking is some friends of mine went to a concert and they said, "Oh, Denise, you got to come. You got to come." I think it was the Eagles return tour or something. I was never an Eagles fan to begin with, and I hate people in crowds. More than two people is too peoply for me. So concerts are just not going to happen. But, they called me on the way back and I said, "How was it?" They said, "Smelled like weed and Bengay." And I lost it. I said, "It's an older crowd." Oh, yeah. I was like,
gray hair.
yeah, I think Vietnam veterans, I don't know. But, they said it was weed and Bengay. And I thought, oh my, I could smell it in my head.
That reminds me of Ray Considine's funeral. Ray Considine, having written Waymish, the book you have, copy of
Right.
it. Why are you making it so hard for me to give you my money? Well, Ray knew every celebrity in Hollywood that was worth knowing, although he wasn't technically in show business. He'd been a male model and he was strikingly handsome.
He was.
Yeah.
I've looked at pictures of him. And when you told me about him, I went and looked him up. I went, oh my. I think I,
Yeah.
I think I
So they,
clutched my heart.
that's the way a lot of ladies reacted to him. First time Gigi met him after dinner, she said, "I love him." I said, "Easy. Everybody loves Ray."
Yeah,
But
he's pretty.
when he died, I walked in, got there just in time, so I came in from the back. I have never seen so many heads of white hair in my life. I can't say I smell Ben Gay, but I know exactly what your friend was talking about. This, if there was ever a crowd that used Ben Gay in quantity, this was it. And beautiful suits that were 20 years out of date, a lot of double-breasted suits and so on. I thought, I feel like I'm stepping into a time machine. But Ray was an interesting guy who, one of the benefits of being an interesting guy, drew interesting people to him.
Hmm.
And as I've heard it said about George Bush Sr. also, so I'm sort of stealing a line, but I went there believing I was Ray's best friend because he had convinced me of that for the 20, 25 years I knew him or more. I'm not sure what it was, it linked time wise. But I then met Ray's other 500 best friends. The church was packed, and every single person there thought they were Ray's best friend. And when they got up to speak, do their little eulogy things, uh, many of them said it, and I thought, I'm glad I'm not. I wasn't sure I could be there, so I didn't sign up for the list. But I thought, I'm glad I'm not there. I'd hate to be the 10th person in line who says Ray was my best friend.
Right.
Great line and he was the ultimate sales infiltrator. I've told you this story. I was doing a seminar, I think it was in Phoenix, and he said, I'm going to be there in Phoenix. Would you mind if I came over? I said, of course not. I'll leave a letter at the desk to let you in. He said, I don't need a letter to get in. So I thought, well, okay, let him figure it out on his own. They introduced me. I come up on stage. I look over to my right, and there inside by the registration desk, like he's running it, is Ray Considine leaning up against the wall. And I made eye contact with him and he winked like, you see, I don't need a letter. I don't need to
I'm
pay.
Ray Considine.
I'm Ray Considine.
I love that story. Tell our audience about Considine. Considine, that story just cracks me up every time I hear it.
Oh, which one?
The one where I think he was trying to get
Oh, at
into
the AT&T
AT&T.
exhibit?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He and his wife was a big deal with AT&T. And they go to the World's Fair in New York. This is years ago to see, besides the World's Fair, to see, it was the one with the Earth globe. It's still there, but they built it for that event. And so they're in the line to get into the AT&T exhibit. And he's with the top executive from AT&T, his wife. And they pass a sign that says 1 hour from this point or something
Oh,
like a Disneyland thing.
right, right.
Ray wouldn't wait an hour in line for his own funeral. He'd have something else to do. So he looked at that sign. In the meantime, he had noticed over on the side of the exhibit building there was a yellow door, and people would go up to it. Not a lot, but while he was standing there, 4 or 5 people went up to it, mumbled something, the door opened, and they went in. So he says to his lovely wife, Betty, takes her hand, says, "Come on." She says, "Where are we going? We'll lose our place in line." He said, "I just found a new line." Goes over to the yellow door and goes on the door, and some reaction must have come from inside. "Who is it?" And he said, "Considine," which meant nothing to them, but that
Right.
didn't change anything. They opened
But
the
he said
door.
it with absolute certainty. He was
Yeah,
Considine.
like General Patton. "Considine." And so they open the door, and there stands his wife was lovely too, but stands this movie star, handsome guy with the turning snow white hair and the Hollywood glasses. And when they cracked the door, he just started in, brought his wife with him, and went in. They were in the middle of the exhibit and spent the next hour or two wandering around. Nobody asked him anything because it was Considine.
Right.
And
And he had that persona, that aura.
that's right.
When you
And that's
show
part
up
of
and you
sales.
mean to show up and you have you don't, it doesn't even you don't consider that you're not welcome there. People pay attention to that and they
That's
react
right.
to it.
Yep. My father told me, and it worked well. He said, when I was going into the Coast Guard, he'd been in the Navy. He said, always carry a rag and a clipboard and look into the middle distance. He said, nobody will mess with you. Look like you look like you
Oh,
belong.
that's right.
Yeah.
And bring a ladder if you have to.
And the ladder, he didn't mention that, but yeah, and the ladder, you want to get into an exhibit, put a 8 foot ladder over your shoulder and walk up to the door. They will step
Yeah.
aside because you obviously wouldn't have a ladder if you didn't have some to do there.
And it must be important. You start looking around to see if the lights are going off.
Right.
Who knows?
But I
And
love it.
we're running
Considine.
out of time. Yeah, I love that story. We're running out of time.
All right, let me do one quick one. I'm
Okay.
glancing at the clock because this was important to me this morning after the weekend. And I had a little leg sprain, so I wasn't in the office much yesterday. Came in this morning and learned again the lesson I've learned almost daily. I had over 100 emails. I opened 4 of them, and of the 4, I really read 2, and will probably take action on both of them. I forgot what they are now, but I saved them. All of the others got deleted because I don't know or like or trust the person who sent it to me, or the subject line was of no interest to me, or the subject line was so canned, like people want to fix your website.
Right.
They
Right.
all send the same thing and #1 on Google and so on. So anyway, I went through out of 100 roughly emails. I went through all but 4 of them. 2 of them didn't make the final cut, and the other 2 probably will. the subject line, folks, in emails and in podcasting, of which Denise is our resident expert in the
I
world.
am
Uh,
in the world.
well,
Thank
you
you.
are, you are. So know that you got to get their attention right up front. And that's also part of sales infiltration. And with that, I'm really looking at the clock and I'll quit.
Well, and you bring up something important because I filter a lot of my emails, so I don't get too heavily burdened with that because I've already put in catchwords and phrases that they're just not going to get past the filters.
Right.
But it's getting really bad in LinkedIn, and I mean really bad. And when and daily, I must block or just ignore 7 or 8 people a day, which is a lot. But they're coming from other countries, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, some of my contractors, are not American and they do terrific work. But they figured out that I'm a podcaster and they're going to help me. They're going to get me here, there, and yonder. They don't know me. They haven't looked at my podcast. They don't understand the length and the breadth of it, but they're going to, get me here, there, and yonder. I block. I don't even bother to respond anymore because it would take all day.
Yeah.
It's like, stop it. It's this canned response that somebody is teaching these poor schmucks and they're sending it to everybody they can think of. And I've read them, the same subject line 100 times already this week. Stop it. You're not
And
going to get my attention that way. It's just not going to happen.
yeah, and their buying list, they don't even
Yes,
know who they're sending their canned thing
they
to.
don't. They don't. And it's like, I don't need you to, get me in the top 1%. I'm already there.
So,
If you just pay attention, leave me alone. But yeah, the subject line is important and if you're going to genuinely reach out to somebody, you better make it personal or personable rather.
mhm.
Don't can anything because we know we're paying attention and you're not going to get us. What was it, Sybil? You're not going to get past us. I'm my gatekeeper and I'm kind of bitchy about it. So
I'm sure
there's
Sybil
that.
has gone to her great
I'm
reward by
sure.
now. But although I never met her, I hated her.
Poor Sybil. And she was just doing a great job for her employer.
Right. Yeah.
But, well, listen, before and we didn't ask any question, you didn't answer any questions, so we'll try to do those next week. Before we reluctantly shut this thing down today, is there anything that you want our audience to know?
No, other than I've got a little space. I've delegated even more of my life than normal to other nice folks. So I've got a little space in the mentoring program. That was a long time where I didn't. So if you're interested in finding out about my mentoring dynamics program, the one I developed with the help of Dr. Napoleon Hill, while I was his mentee the last 2.5 years of his life, shoot me an email. My email is B as in Ben, F as in Frank, G as in gay, the numeral 3, BFG3 at directcon, DIRECTCON, short for direct connect.net. Just put in the subject line mentoring and therefore I'll open it and I'll send you without cost obligation of any kind, the details of how it works, what it costs, etc. And there'll be no follow-up calls. You don't have to worry about, oh, if I give them information, they'll be all over me for weeks. We will send you what you asked for and never contact you again unless you want to go forward. So that's my commercial for the day.
And where can people find the closers?
Well, I just broke my own pledge because I said that'd be the commercial for the day. But since
Well,
you
I couldn't
asked,
let you get by with that. I mean, you
since
know
you
me. Come
asked,
on.
the Closers family of books, in particular the Closers Parts 1 and 2, is available with best pricing, signed, signed and dated, guaranteed, 100% money back guarantee, and free shipping at stores, STORES dot ebay.com / this is all one word, Ronzoni Books, RONZONEBOOKS. Any order in by 2 o'clock on any day goes out that day. Other orders after that go out the next business day. Signed, dated, guaranteed.
Got it. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for joining us for week 14 of the Closers Inner Circle podcast. It's a master class. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, but this is just 14 of the masterclass. So, as always, it's an honor to bring these powerful insights and terrific stories to you alongside the legendary Bengay III, who is also my mentor and a very dear friend, and I appreciate him very much. And remember, mastery doesn't come from information alone, it comes from implementation. Just do it. Seriously, if you have an idea and you think it's a great idea, do it. And here's something to think about. Every hesitation turns into history. Act before it does. I just made that up. Smart, huh?
Yeah.
I'm I'm humble too. So listen, everybody, we will see you next Wednesday and send us those questions if you have questions about podcasting or sales. And I'll be honest with you, I'll be very frank. To me, podcasting is marketing 101. It is very much part of sales and getting your voice heard. Shoot us a note, we'll answer them. So, Ben, I'll see you next week.
All right. You have a wonderful day.
You too.